The amazing thing is though you ended up getting Clinton to change, and we balanced the budget for the first time. No, well, listen, I remember you guys doing that town hall. You were sitting on these little seats one day, and but we did balance the budget. We made real progress. There was a lot of give and take in that. Is Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, are they capable of doing what Clinton did, which I think easily helped him get reelected 2 years later?
I don't know. I thought earlier today that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had a great interview, and he said to him something which I can reflect on because I was there, and that is that the politics of investigation may make your partisans happy, but may turn off a lot of people. I think the president clearly is going to reach out on things like infrastructure. He's going to reach out on some practical, common sense steps on health care, including lowering the cost of drugs. I think he's going to try to find issues that make it very hard for the Democrats to say no. And then we'll see whether or not they are so rabid. And certainly the left wing of the Democratic Party is much more rabid than anything that either Clinton or I had to deal with in the 90s.
What's your reaction?
It'll be interesting to see how it develops.
What's your reaction to Jeff Sessions' announcement today? Because I couldn't believe when he recused himself. If he had any thought that he would do this, I thought he would have owed the president at least the courtesy or the heads up, hey, I may have to recuse here. And we know the result of all of that. And I know now they're trying to go after the interim attorney general. But I think for a president not to have an attorney general on the most important case that he wanted in his administration has been very harmful.
Well, first of all, I think it was handled exactly right. It's the day after all the election. I think that the chief of staff, John Kelly, did the right thing. And in immediate response, knowing it was coming, the attorney general did the right thing in resigning. I will say just for a minute, if I could, Sean, I've known Jeff Sessions for a long time. He was a very solid conservative in the Senate. He actually helped organize the first Trump campaign meeting in Washington, and it has been sad to see him have to go through all this, and I suspect he's a very relieved guy tonight.
I've always known him to be a good man. I agree with you. This was not the right position, and it was it worked out, I think, just better for everybody at this point. Mr. Speaker, right. Thank you so much. When we come back, okay, Jeff Sessions gone. Everything about the Mueller probe that the left doesn't want investigated that may now begin. This could be very interesting. Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, Jason Chaffetz, and why didn't I work on election night? We'll explain all that straight ahead.
Democratic House. With sights set on Trump, Ken Starr led the Clinton investigation. Now, he weighs in on what could be coming the president's way. Tomorrow on The Story.
Deepak Chopra is a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation. It's great to see you yet again, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for being here today. I know you're a fan of universal health care. I don't necessarily think you're a fan of Obamacare the way it has been carried out. I don't think you're a fan of repeal and replace or repair or whatever form that is. How do you think we are doing it right or perhaps incorrectly right now in America?
We're doing it incorrectly because what we call healthcare reform is not healthcare reform. It is insurance reform. Of course, everyone needs, in some shape or form, affordable healthcare. No question about that. But we have to go deeper, and that is most of our efforts in healthcare are in treating sickness. When we now know that only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant, which means 95% of chronic illness is somehow related to your lifestyle. Important things like sleep, meditation, exercise, healthy emotions, not the kind of strident emotions we're seeing in our political climate right now, and good nutrition and connection with nature, and we would have a different definition of healthcare.
Do you think anyone in this world has done it right?
Some people are doing it right individually on a social level.
But not a government system.
Not a government system, no. Because the government system always emphasizes sickness. It's not healthcare. Sickness is important, but as we go into the future, we are going to see that medicine is going to be precise, predictable, preventable, process-oriented, and participatory. We all have to be involved.
Okay. You are the universe. I'm reading through this, and normally when we talk about the universe, cosmic matters, let's say, we talk about what's out there and what we don't know or what we don't understand. Your message here is that the world, the universe, all of it actually consists right in front of you.
Right.
Explain that.
This moment, in your awareness, in your consciousness, in your being, you're experiencing sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, emotions, period. The rest is interpretation. This is my mind, this is my body, that's the universe, this is the government. That's a human story. Go beyond all the perspectives, even political right now. Go beyond all that, and you'll find a domain which is pure creativity, pure intelligence, love, compassion, joy, equanimity.
When you talk about that, if I buy into what you're telling me right now, how's that going to make my life better? How's that make me a better person?
If you go deep within yourself, then naturally, very naturally, without having to actually follow the so-called rules and regulations of life, you will have love, compassion, joy, equanimity, healing. You will encounter truth, goodness, beauty, harmony.
All of it.
All of it, which is every child that is born. You know, they say every child that is born is proof that God has not yet given up on human beings. So you want to go back to that original state before it got contaminated by opinion.
How long is it going to take me to get there?
Start today.
Right.
Democrats, they were quick to push more Russia hysteria following the departure of the Attorney General Jeff Sessions. For example, Congressman Gerald Nadler, get used to him. We're going to be following him, and let's see, Pelosi and Maxine Waters. We're going to see if they're going to work for you. He's expected to be the next House Judiciary Chair, tweeting that he wants answers about who's now in charge of the Mueller probe and suggested more endless investigations. That's really going to help the American people. Joining us now, author of New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, also the author of The Deep State, another New York Times bestseller, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, Sarah Carter, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor. Where's your book? How come you don't have a book?
Oh, I'm going to have a book, Sean. You know it too.
All right. You know, I know that almost immediately they scream, recusal. Greg Jarrett, you probably have been the single most outspoken person that Sessions has to go. What do you think of the interim Attorney General? And do you think he's going to recuse? God help us?
No.
Or will the president now appoint a full-time replacement?
Well, now that there's no recusal because Sessions is gone, the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, can now preside over the special counsel case, and he should. What the media didn't point out today is that Rod Rosenstein should recuse himself. He's both a witness and a prosecutor in the same case. Whether it's Whitaker in the end, who's the permanent AG, or I would recommend Representative John Ratcliffe of the House Judiciary Committee, former top official at DOJ, former U.S. Attorney. Those individuals, Ratcliffe or Whitaker, I think, would bring to justice those in the Department of Justice and the FBI who abuse their positions of power to target Donald Trump without evidence and to spy on the Trump campaign with fabricated evidence.
And Jason, let me go to you. You know Whitaker. We've known his work now for a long time. And the president was very clear, those 302s, the Gang 8 information, those FISA warrant applications may now all be released. I also would say that probably investigations into Hillary and all these other instances, FISA abuse, lying to FISA courts, abuse of some of the powerful tools of intelligence might now be on the table.
Yeah, look, Senator Sessions then became Attorney General Sessions. He was a revered member of the Republican Party, and I wish him nothing but the best. But when he became the Attorney General, I got to tell you, members of Congress became very dissatisfied with him because he did not listen up the documents, did not respond to subpoenas, and did not give people like myself, when I was the chairman of the Oversight Committee, the documents he wanted. Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Trey Gowdy, John Ratcliffe, they can't do their job unless they have their documents. So now that there's new leadership in place, I think there is an expectation that those things do get loosened up. And by the way, I agree with Greg. I do hope that the President Trump appoints John Ratcliffe. I think he's the best person for the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah, now the exoneration before investigation, the real Russian dossier, that can now be investigated by the new Attorney General. Democrats want a lot of investigations. There's a lot of fertile ground, and we know crimes were committed.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that they're going to be looking at is also all the unmaskings. How was the intelligence community weaponized, particularly, and how the FBI handled this investigation into President Trump? I mean, there are so many avenues that can be looked at right now, and we know, based on what President Trump said today, that there is a strong possibility, Sean, that these documents will be declassified. The American public deserves to know what was going on. And I've also been hearing that indictments may be around the corner. So there's a lot more information that's going to come out in the near future. I think the president did the right thing. He waited till after the midterms, and it was expected. And the president has every right to say it's over, Jeff Sessions. And, you know, most of the time it would have happened anyways. It's been 2 years. It's time for Jeff Sessions to move on.
If I was some of these top DOJ, FBI officials, I think I'd be very nervous tonight about what could be coming. You all agree with that? Real quick.
The law enforcers became the lawbreakers. They should now be held accountable.
Jason, will that
After
happen?
the Inspector General report, it is crystal clear that is a Department of Justice that's in chaos, and they need new leadership to straighten the
10
ship
seconds,
out.
Sarah. Is it going to happen?
That's what I was just going to say. It is going to happen. It will happen, Sean.
All right. Many of you think I was lazy and I didn't show up for work last night. I have an announcement.
Today we are talking about something that has never been done. And when I say never been done, I mean this is a first here in Earth, like world first, but also, wait for it, a galaxy, possibly even a universe first. That's right. We're talking about space beer. Beer specifically designed to drink in space, but also the contraption to allow us to drink a beer while we're in space, just like we would here on Earth. How could that possibly be possible, right? With 0G, no gravity, how can you possibly sip a delightful beer and kick back and relax in space like you would here on Earth? Well, that's what we're talking about today here on Fox Firepower. This first space beer is called Vostok. Now you may wonder, why the Ruski sounding name? Well, it's named after the first breakthrough flight of manned space flight, right? So that was a breakthrough in our history, our Earth's history. So it's named after that breakthrough because this is another key breakthrough here in space. A local brewery called Four Pines has partnered up with Sabre Aeronautics. They've combined that know-how to create not just a delicious recipe, but one that will taste good in space. Because here's the thing, beer on Earth is not going to taste the same way it does here as it will up in the stars. There's lots of science that goes on behind that. We won't get into the nitty-gritty, it's very complex. But suffice to say, you've got to make a whole new recipe. The interesting thing is this team has been able to come up with a recipe that tastes so delicious here on Earth, as well as in space, that it's been winning medals. Not just any medal, like gold medals. That's how tasty this first space beer is. So what on earth does this first space beer taste like? I spoke to folks in the know, and here's what they told me. It's a classic Irish stout with about 5% alcohol content. You'll find that throughout your flights in space, it maintains its flavor and its deliciousness, no matter how long the flight is, no matter how long you're deployed up there, if you're American military in space. The aroma profile is of coffee, chocolate, and caramel malts. These are matched on the palate with a full-bodied, smooth finish and a balancing bitterness. So you've got a recipe for space beer. It tastes delicious here on Earth. It tastes delicious up in space. But now, how do you create that very important part of enjoying a beer, the experience of a beer in a glass, drinking it, right? How do you have the foam spill over up in space in a 0G atmosphere? So they've taken a fuel tank. So think about rocket fuel, right? They've taken that kind of engineering, the design of fuel tanks, and they've modified it, translated it into a way to make it into a beer delivery system up in space. So you can be drinking a beer very similar, like as close as possible to the way you'd be drinking here on Earth with gravity. How cool is that? So why make a space beer, and what does this have to do with defense? Well, here's the thing. This month we've been hearing a lot about how we might be developing a force to sit alongside our forces, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. There will be a space force. President Trump has put his political will behind this. It's being widely discussed. It's got a lot of buzz in Washington. So we're expecting in the near term, we will have U.S. forces posted up in space. Why do they need to be there? Well, the idea is they'd be sort of like marshals in our Wild West.
Hello to our viewers in India watching on Hotstar. Thanks for watching Fox. For more, go online and check us out on foxbusiness.com as well as foxnews.com. Keep it right here.
Fox Nation is opinion done right, on demand and on every platform.
With opinion shows and documentaries from the name that you trust.
Become a founder now and get limited time-only merchandise. FoxNation.com. Pre-order now.
All right, welcome back to Hannity. Before we go, a lot of you last night wondering, oh my gosh, where's Sean Hannity? Why isn't he here? I don't work election nights. I haven't for most of the years I've been here. I want to address something because, it's amazing the things that people write that aren't true. And, so we did this event with Donald Trump the other day in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I tweeted out I was not part of whatever coverage was going to take place at the campaign. I gave a tweet that was 100% truthful. I was watching Rush give his speech. The president, I had no idea. He invited me on stage. I'll be honest, I was honored by the president's request. It was not planned, and I want to be very, very clear. I'm on stage, you've heard me say it all the time, every day, every night, because I believe it's true, that there's a lot of fake news. I want to be very clear, especially after hearing some commentary and reading some things. I was not and would never refer to my friends, my colleagues here at the Fox News Channel in those remarks. As a matter of fact, they are such a cut above everybody else. And by the way, if anybody construed it that way, I'm totally sorry in terms of the people that I work with. I called a couple of my friends, colleagues here, and I've had a great relationship with almost everybody here all the time I've worked here. I am a talk show host. They do news. I don't know how they do what they do. They do, local news, national news, international news. Well, they have one really tough job because they have to stay fair and balanced, and they do that in an amazing way every day. Me, I'm like the whole newspaper. We do news, we do investigative reporting, we give strong opinions, and yes, sometimes they have to take heat because of what their opinion side friends say. But I want to tell you something. I am so honored and proud of being able to work here with the best journalists in the entire country. They are, and by the way, we saw it in the ratings last night, and I wasn't even here, higher than my ratings. By a lot, actually. Number one, beating all the networks, beating all the cable channels. They did an amazing job. That's what they do. I'm proud to be a small part of this, and I love these colleagues. Most of them are like friends, all of them, as a matter of fact. All right, that's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingram's next.
Real news, real honest opinion, all in one place. Stay on top of the hottest trending stories here. This is Fox News Radio.
This is a Fox News alert. A gunman goes on a killing spree at a bar in California. I'm Dave Anthony. That's what it sounded like at the Borderline Bar in Thousand Oaks. The sound courtesy of RMG News. As a hooded man dressed in black opened fire.
I hear some loud pop, pop, pop. All of a sudden I see my stepdad dive to the ground. And he says, hide, hit the deck.
And you got a good look at the shooter.
He didn't say anything. The only thing you hear is screaming and people, just yelling.
He had 2 rounds that I know with him. He changed them within about 6 seconds, which was really fast.
In the end, he murdered 11 people and was packed on a college country night in that bar. He also killed a sheriff sergeant responding to the shooting, Ron Heelis.
As I told his wife, he died a hero because he went in to save lives, to save other people.
That's Ventura County Sheriff Jeff Dean. That sergeant was planning to retire soon. As many as 20 other people were injured. The gunman's also dead. It's not clear if he killed himself. President Trump just tweeted, calling it terrible, adding God bless the victims and their families, adding great bravery shown by police. Now, with the next Congress divided, the president and Nancy Pelosi, who may be the next House Speaker, have both said they want to work together, but House Democrats may be readying investigations into the White House, and there's another controversy at the Justice Department now that the president's ousted Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Fox's Rachel Sutherland live in Washington.
Dave, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has a message for whoever replaces Sessions. Hands off the Russia probe.
They should not be able to end it. They should not be able to limit it. They should not be able to interfere with Mueller going forward and doing what he thinks is the right thing.
President Trump named Matthew Whitaker as a temporary replacement. Democrats want him to recuse himself. Whitaker has publicly questioned the probe and whether it's gone too far. Dave.
This is Fox News.
Looking for opinion done right? Then go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now. Fox
Fox Nation is the new streaming subscription service that will have exclusive daily shows, incredible documentaries, and must-see on-demand programming. That's the perfect complement for every Fox fan. Plus, go to FoxNation.com, pre-order now, and get one-of-a-kind exclusive merchandise. Available now, but for a limited time only. Don't miss your chance to become a founding member. Go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now.
Brett Baer.
When someone watches the news, they want someone they can trust. Our job is to cut through the talking points.
Martha McCallum.
We're going to ask the tough questions because there's a lot of conventional wisdom out there that needs to be challenged.
Shannon Bream.
What I'm doing is making sure that whatever is developed through the day, people are fully informed from coast to coast.
We're 24/7 news, but we're really down to the minute.
We're going to be fearless. We're going to be fair. Whether it's 4 a.m. or midnight, we're there.
Fox News Channel. Real news, real honest opinion.
Again, our top Fox News story, a mass shooting at a bar in Thousand Oaks, California, near Los Angeles before midnight last night. A man in black walked in and opened fire, killing 11 people, and then a sheriff's sergeant who was also responding. The gunman is also dead. We don't know if law enforcement shot him or if he killed himself. President Trump mixed it up with the media at a news conference yesterday, talking about a lot of issues from the elections and bipartisanship to the caravan and foreign policy and the media. Again, getting into it with reporter Jim Acosta.
CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person.
They've butted heads before after they sparred over a question.
Another question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. I'm
Acosta even pushing a female White House staffer's arm away as she reached for the press microphone back.
one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
The White House is now suspending Acosta's hard pass. Spokesperson Sarah Sanders tweeting in part, "We will never tolerate a reporter placing his hands on a young woman trying to do her job." Acosta also taking to Twitter with a response, calling Sanders' statement a lie. Tom Graham, Fox News.
The White House Correspondents Association wants Acosta's access restored. A week after Halloween, a trick amid the treats.
An 11-year-old in North Carolina is accused of placing straight pins inside Halloween candy. A father in Rowan County reports his 12-year-old son bit into a mini Snickers bar and noticed something was stuck to the roof of his mouth. It was a straight pin. A second family says they also found a metal object inside a Snickers. The 11-year-old suspect is facing felony charges in juvenile court, and a mental health evaluation is being recommended. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
On Wall Street, stock futures are down the day after the big Dow rally. The Dow went up 545 points. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. There's an awful lot going on right now. The president fired one of his earliest supporters in Washington, former senator, now former Attorney General Jeff Sessions. We'll have details and thoughts on that in just a minute. But first, the big story, the smoke is clearing tonight for the most expensive midterm elections in American history. The outlines are just becoming visible. The results, it turns out, are confusing. It wasn't exactly a draw, but both sides can claim victory, and of course they are. In the House, Republicans did slightly worse than average in a midterm election. In the Senate, they did a little better. Some of the races played out as referendums on the president's first 2 years in office. Other races had nothing at all to do with Trump. In some races, hard-edged ideologues won. In others, doughy moderates did. It was basically a patchwork. There are no obvious takeaways from what happened last night. But there are some useful lessons, and that's what we'd like to spend some time talking about tonight. What exactly have we learned from 470 individual congressional elections, some big governor's races, and a full year of political debate? Well, the biggest news is that Democrats just won back the House of Representatives after 8 years. They are thrilled with that, obviously, and yet they don't appear to have any idea how they did it. As of tonight, there really is no Democratic program or platform or message. There's no Democratic plan for making the economy stronger or the country safer. There's only Donald Trump, whom they despise. The entire Democratic message is Trump. The president is often accused of narcissism, making everything about himself, but on that point, Democrats agree with him. They think everything is about Trump, too. Watch this clip from last night. It had just become clear that Democrats were about to retake the House. It was a big moment. It was really the apex of the night. And at that apex, a senior Democrat called the set at MSNBC to announce his party's top priority now that they have regained power. Here it is.
I've spoken to a senior Democratic source on the Ways and Means Committee who says tonight, breaking news, they do intend to request President Trump's tax returns. Getting your hands on those Trump tax returns, as everyone knows, would be a big deal for the committee.
Getting Trump's tax returns, that's the priority for Democrats, not infrastructure, not wages, not the looming threat of China or drug ODs in this country, the shrinking middle class, not even health care. Trump's tax returns. That's what Democrats really want. Okay, maybe they'll get them. Maybe they'll get those returns. What then? What exactly will we learn from Trump's tax returns? That a casino owner once employed a clever accountant? That he made less than he claimed he did? Will anybody be shocked by any of that? Will anyone care about any of that? Whereas with the Stormy Daniels saga that went on forever, will voters find themselves titillated for a moment and then lose interest? What do Trump's tax returns have to do with them anyway? Their premiums haven't gone down. It's all just noise. Almost all of this is just noise. And for the rest of us, there's a pretty simple lesson, and you'd think Democrats would have figured it out. But they have not figured it out. Congressman Jerry Nadler will likely be the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Just today, Nadler was on a train back to Washington from New York, and he was overheard by somebody laying out his legislative priorities. First on the list, not making this up, impeaching Brett Kavanaugh and removing him from the Supreme Court. Apparently that's what Democrats really believe voters want. More than anything else, get that Kavanaugh guy off the court. Congressman Adam Schiff of California, meanwhile, is poised to take over the House Intelligence Committee. He's been the ranking member there for the last couple of years. He says that come January, when he takes over, his main priority will be intensifying the Russia probe, because it's not intense enough or long-standing enough. Schiff apparently thinks that he can prove that Vladimir Putin somehow stole the 2016 election with a few dozen Facebook ads that hardly anybody saw. Can Schiff really prove that? Who knows? Maybe. What we can know for certain is that nobody outside Washington will care at all if he does prove it. The entire Russia conversation is irrelevant and dumb. That has been proven already. It has nothing to do with anything, and everybody knows it. Democrats are the only ones who don't know it yet. As of right now, the entire Democratic platform can be summed up in one sentence. Donald Trump is a bad person. That's what they plan to run on in the next presidential election, which incidentally starts today, right now. Good luck with that. It's a virtual guarantee that Trump will serve a full 8 years if you make it about him. And by the way, so is all the race talk. That's not helping you. Somewhere along the way, Democrats became convinced they could win elections by denouncing voters as racist. The Andrew Gillum campaign just tried it in Florida. Remember, he was asked about the FBI probe? You're a racist for asking. Stacey Abrams' surrogates tried it also in Georgia. Did it work? No. It rarely works. Why would it work? Here's a bit of hard-earned knowledge from almost 30 years of covering campaigns. When you call voters immoral, they don't like it. And yet the left continues to throw out the racist slur, probably because they enjoy doing it. It makes them feel good about themselves. Here's ABC's coverage of the Gillum race last night. Watch this.
And I think for many progressives in a place like Florida and Georgia, they'll be incredibly disappointed, and they'll be giving their white neighbors the hairy eyeball tomorrow, right?
In other words, ABC is telling us Andrew Gillum lost because of his skin color, and he lost because of the behavior of people of a certain skin color. ABC knows that. You hear things like this all the time, every day, and yet, curiously, nobody ever bothers to prove any of it, or even try. Why? Because it's unprovable, and that's the appeal. Racism is now anything you don't like. A racist is anyone who's in your way. Hurling allegations of bigotry are, from the perspective of the left, the quickest way to get what you want. That's why they do it. It happened again today.
On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying
I don't know why you'd say that. It's such a racist
There are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world, and I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first.
Now, that happened at the president's briefing, so you may not even have seen it because you're living a real life and not glued to the internet. But trust me, if that had happened even just a few years ago, it would have been everywhere. It would have been international news. An accredited White House reporter calling the president of the United States a white supremacist? Holy smokes. But now it's just any other day on cable news. Nobody really believes that the reporter means it. It's posturing, and therefore it is boring. The claim, racist, is losing its power from overuse. Diminishing returns have been reached. If you've got a problem with nationalism, it might be better just to argue against nationalism. That way we might all learn something. In the meantime, Republicans should understand that Democrats call them bigots not because they believe they are bigots, or even because they care if they are bigots. Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan are still allowed in the Democratic Party after all. Democrats obviously aren't too concerned about bigotry, or they'd kick those guys out first step. Democrats say it, they make the charge because they hope it will bring them power, and power is what they want. It's all they want. Republicans lost an entire chamber of Congress last night. Nobody rioted this morning. Nobody blocked intersections or looted liquor stores. You didn't see Republican consultants on television this morning questioning the results or attacking the House of Representatives as illegitimate as an institution. It didn't occur to Republicans to do that. It was just an election. You lose sometimes. That's how Republicans think. That is not how Democrats think. They mean it. They lost a few seats in the Senate last night. Already they're denouncing the Senate itself as somehow undemocratic. The talking points have gone around. They're all reading them. Watch Joy Behar today try to read them. Ultimately, she misread the talking points, but she gave it her best shot in The View. Watch this.
So Democrats won the popular vote last night by 8 million votes, right? They lose, but they lose U.S. Senate races in red areas.
Because of gerrymandering.
Well, it's not that's the Constitution. I mean, you can't. The districts are gerrymandered, but the states are part of the Constitution.
Well, you can't gerrymander a Senate election, of course, because it's statewide. Joy Behar probably doesn't know that. She probably doesn't know really what the Senate is. But she knows power, and like a lot of the Democrats you see on television, she will say whatever it takes to get power. Republicans should understand that. But it's not just Democrats who should have learned something last night. There were major lessons for Republicans, too, ones they should pay attention to. Here's one. Voters care about campaign promises. If you don't fulfill your campaign promises, it turns out they notice, they remember, and they don't care for it. In 2016, Republicans in Congress promised to, build a wall, get rid of Obamacare, defund Planned Parenthood. They got elected on those promises. They didn't do any of them once they got elected. Maybe that's one reason they lost the House last night. Here's another lesson. Immigration matters, not just on the level of individuals and families and caravans, the things that we debate every night, but on the level of entire populations. Immigration changes who lives in a country and who votes. Ultimately, that's why it matters. You never know that from listening to the coverage of immigration stories. You would think the question of who comes into your country and under what circumstances was entirely a moral issue, really a question of personal decency. Good people are for open borders, bad people are against them. It's always the message, including today.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to
try to keep?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process.
Can I ask one other question? Are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
You hate to see this become a news story. Acosta is such a buffoon, but he's such a buffoon that the White House apparently felt it had no choice but to respond. The press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, put out this statement, quote, President Trump believes in a free press and expects and welcomes tough questions of him and his administration. We will, however, never tolerate a reporter placing his hands on a young woman just trying to do her job as a White House intern, as apparently that woman was. This conduct is absolutely unacceptable. It is also completely disrespectful to the reporter's colleagues not to allow them an opportunity to ask a question. The statement went on to say, as a result of what happened today, the White House is suspending the hard pass of the reporter involved until further notice. So that's today's Jim Acosta sidebar. But whatever else the exchange you just saw was, what it really was a diversion from the political reality of immigration. Here's the political reality. California was once a solidly Republican state for generations. It is now among the most Democratic. Why? Immigration. Different people live there. Not surprisingly, they vote very differently. Something very similar is happening right now in Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Virginia, North Carolina, and many other states. And that was reflected in last night's vote totals. Check the numbers. Democrats obviously know this. That's why they oppose borders, because it helps them win elections. Republicans, by profound contrast, have been very slow to pick up on this. They're very literal. They still think immigration policy is about virtue. Republicans also seem to think that their economic message is working. They're very proud of the tax bill they passed in Congress, the Congress that they will control not much longer. Paul Ryan's always talking about his tax bill. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with tax cuts. But Republican strategists seem to forget that a huge percentage of Americans don't pay federal taxes. By definition, they don't care very much about tax cuts. Cuts to taxes they don't pay. For them and for many others, the economy is not measured in stock prices and GDP numbers. Their concerns are tangible concerns. What does gas cost? Can I afford to live in a safe neighborhood? Will I go bankrupt if I get sick? These are real questions for tens of millions of people. The party that effectively addresses these questions generally wins elections. Republicans, for whatever reason, tend to ignore these questions, and that's a big reason they just lost the House. But there's a larger question that we ought to meditate on. The Republican Party is a conservative party. Republicans are supposed to care about families, not just a little bit, but above all. And yet, increasingly, the American family is vanishing. Young people can't afford to get married or to have children. Take a look at the numbers sometime. They're publicly available. They are shocking. And they foretell an ominous future for all of us. A country without strong families is a weak country. It is a volatile place, a chaotic place. It's a place susceptible to political demagoguery. It's what America is becoming. If you want to stop that slide, support families. It's that simple. Put another way, if your supposedly conservative economic program doesn't make it easier for young people to get and stay married and have kids, how is it really conservative? If couples are too poor to have children and you're not helping, why should I, as a conservative, vote for you? I should not vote for you. I will not vote for you. I will work against you. That is my pledge. Supporting marriage and children is the best, maybe the only way for Republicans or any of us to save the country. It will also win them elections. They should start right away. We'll be discussing the effect of yesterday's midterms throughout the hour tonight. Up next, we'll ask a Democrat what the party's messages coming out of the midterms and what, if anything, Democrats stand for. Dana Perino also joins us, as well as who the Democrats will choose for House Speaker. That's on the lineup for tonight. We'll, of course, also weigh in on the president's firing of the Attorney General. All ahead. Stay tuned.
Give us a sense into the tactics that you use, how you train for an active shooter scenario.
We need to get in as quickly as possible and effectively terminate the threat or stop the shooting. So the way we train the officers now in patrol is to, if you're the first person on the scene, you have to make that personal choice to make entry into that structure.
Hands up, on the floor, on the floor, on the floor!
We're all watching from afar what happened in Las Vegas.
Go that way, go that way, go that way.
Just from what you've seen, your reaction to, those men that were clearing those floors and what they were facing.
From a law enforcement standpoint, to locate a sniper shooter type from 1,200 yards away is quite difficult. It's going to have to effectively rely on some 911 calls to try and localize where those shots are coming from. If he was standing in the crowd, it would be quite difficult. But the response to the hotel and the actual room where the shooting came from what I understand, was handled beautifully.
Breach. We have one suspect down. Every second is a casualty. So that's why it's imperative that the officers at the scene, they have to get there as quickly as possible and neutralize the threat. Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down.
What kind of gear am I to be wearing today?
All right, we're going to put on you a ballistic vest. This is what we operate in, and obviously what we train in. We always train the way that we want to operate. So guys, no, train as you fight, exactly, because weight does make a difference, especially when you're working in it all day. So you want to get accustomed to wearing the gear.
And these plates, what do we got? 5.56 resistant?
They are rated for rifle rounds, yes, but I would not want to take a rifle round in the chest wearing anything, so plate or not.
It's been a while since I threw one.
Yeah, that's okay. So you just slip it up over your head.
Got to get it nice and snug. That's the key.
And then when we get rolling in a few minutes, you'll wear a ballistic helmet.
Oh, this feels like home right here. All right, guys, so we're about to roll up. Tell me what's going through your head right before you pull up on an objective or a house?
Main thing is watch each other's back.
Absolutely.
We all want to go home at the end of the day.
The psychology when you're at that door, when you're preparing to go into an active shooter environment, what's going through your head?
You have to be able to flip a switch. You know, it's definitely an aggressive act. We control the structure by violence, speed, and surprise. I mean, that's really how the tactics are most effective.
If you're watching us in Hong Kong on PCCW, thank you for tuning in. If you have a question or a story idea, email us at foxaroundtheworld@foxbusiness.com.
After 8 years, Democrats once again control the House of Representatives. That'll be official in January, but only by a pretty slim margin. Now a new battle begins, and that's the battle over the Democratic Party's message. What do they stand for? Is it open borders and socialism? Wages in the middle class? Who knows what it is, or will it just remain Trump is evil, Republicans are racist? Is that enough? Brian Dean Wright is a Democrat, former CIA officer. It's a sincere question. In my view, there's the identity politics wing of the party and the economic populism wing of the party. I know who I'm rooting for. Who do you think is going to win? What is the message?
Who's going to win? That's the big question. What we saw yesterday was a divide between the Heartland Democrats and the Coastal Democrats. So the Heartland Democrats, a lot of those folks from Michigan and Pennsylvania, even places like Kansas and Oklahoma,
yes,
who are saying, let's focus on the basics, right? Good wages, decent jobs, affordable health care. That's the message that I think most Americans want to hear. What we are hearing, however, from the Coastal folks is something very, very different. This is the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez democratic socialism, which is lots of big government, lots of programs that we can't really pay for. We want to abolish ICE. We want to not really address the immigration issue because we want open borders. That is the other wing of the party. Which one will win? Here's my concern of why the Alexandria Cortez folks will win. We've got DNC chair Tom Perez, who says that she is the head of the Democratic Party. She's the future of the Democratic Party. We also have Obama, who actually endorsed her as well.
But can I say, is that because she's impressive, or is it because of the way she... Right, I'm not being mean, but, but she's young, and she seems like she doesn't know very much at all, and so I'm beginning to think it's only because of her race and gender, which is not a good way to make these decisions on it, because it's irrelevant.
Of course, but this gets back to, I think, the philosophical, the ideological struggle that's happening within the party right now, and that is this. Are we going to be a party that tells people you have to vote for Democrats because you're a woman, because you're gay, because the color of your skin is dark? That is one way of the party. In fact, you hear it from people now in Texas criticizing white people who didn't vote for Beto. But saying thank you to folks who are of color.
I'm just confused because here Beto O'Rourke is this white guy with a fake Hispanic name running against an actual Hispanic guy named Ted. But if you voted for the white guy against the Hispanic guy, you're a racist? Like, how does that even... I'm too literal for this world, I think.
Yeah, well, you and me both. And I can tell you, as a Democrat, it's incredibly frustrating to watch the party cannibalize itself in the midst of this debate. Because at the end of the day, if you look at this from a health of the democracy, we need multiple parties. We need good debate.
Yes, I totally
Democrats
agree.
Can't be a part of that conversation when we are all so far off in a left field that we're talking about open borders and people have to vote a certain way because of their gender. So that is really the cost, the consequence, and frankly, why Republicans should be upset about this as well. We all should be concerned when a major party in this country is so unhinged that they're not giving the people a choice.
I think that's a really wise point, and for that reason, I am rooting for the Democrats to get sane. I don't think it doesn't help anybody if one party falls apart. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, Mike. Great to see you. The president tweeted this today, and I'm quoting, "In all fairness, Nancy Pelosi deserves to be Speaker of the House by the Democrats. If they give her a hard time, perhaps we will add some Republican votes. She has earned this great honor!" Exclamation point. Not clear if that was entirely sincere. Will Democrats go with Pelosi again, or will new leadership take over? It's not a small question. Dana Perino is the person we turn to answer tough questions like this. Of course, she hosts the Daily Briefing every day.
Small guest.
Dana.
Big question.
So what? I mean, because it's not simply about who gets the gavel. It's about what is the party's message.
All sorts of things. Look, I think President Trump has thought this through. He is elevating Pelosi for a very good reason. One, yeah, he's right. She deserves it. The Republicans made her the villain of every ad across the country, and she still was able to pull out the win that she said she would be able to do. So on the merits, he might look at her as a worthy competitor, okay? However, what also does this do? This makes all of these new Democrats that she was willing to let them say that they would never vote for her. They promised in their districts, I will never vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. Guess what's about to happen? The very first vote that these new members of Congress are going to be asked to take is whether Nancy Pelosi should be Speaker of the House. And they might end up breaking a promise, their very first promise on their very first vote in order to make her Speaker.
Now, why would they do that? I mean, Nancy, I'm not attacking, I'm actually, I kind of agree with you. Nancy Pelosi's hung around, and, why wouldn't it be Nancy Pelosi? But why would people go against their pledges?
So if Nancy Pelosi had been able to get like 65 seats, this wouldn't even be a question, because she would say, I don't care if there's 24 or 30 of you who say you don't want to vote for me. I've got a cushion large enough, then it doesn't matter to me, so it doesn't matter. But it's only 30 or so plus. I think what might end up happening is because the Democrats have no consensus, you just had this conversation with the previous guest. There's no message. What are they doing? Who are they? Who's going to be the leader? It's different than choosing a minority leader who is going to lob bombs all day long. This one is important about the future of the country and the future direction of the party. And so I think that's why it makes a little bit more of a difference. If you remember, the Republicans said that they were going to repeal and replace Obamacare. They end this election cycle with Obamacare more popular than it was before. They didn't keep their promise on that vote, and that tends to enrage the base. I think what might happen, though, is that Nancy Pelosi will become the caretaker speaker. She will be there for a while with a promise that she's going to work on a transition to somebody else, maybe the next generation, something like that. But they will probably end up having to cast their first vote for her.
And I honestly can't wait for that. I mean, there's always an upside, and you were always the person who points it out.
Look, and the good news is,
the good news is, exactly. Dana Perino, great to see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The President fired his Attorney General today, Jeff Sessions. We will bring you details on what exactly happened and why and what it means after the break.
From Wicked to Lion King, Broadway is known for being home to family-friendly classics, and now a new show is drawing crowds by tapping into their inner princess. The musical Anastasia, based on the animated classic from 1997, opened in the spring and is showing no signs of slowing down. Christy Altomar plays the title character, the orphan Anya, who discovers she might actually be royalty. Altomar says stepping into this role is a dream come true.
It's absolutely surreal, especially since I grew up with the animated classic.
And the show isn't going to be limited to New York. Producers have announced a world tour starting in the fall, with plans for an American tour to be announced soon.
There are so many fans. They'll reach out to me and say, is there any way? Are you coming to Norway? Are you coming to London? This is an incredible experience for people all over the world to be touched by this story.
In the meantime, the cast recording, which was released this summer, is still climbing the charts, with songs from the film, as well as brand new songs written just for the stage show.
What I'm finding is people that just love who Anastasia, who Anya represents, just this girl who has courage and against all obstacles that come in her path decides to take the choice to keep moving forward.
Anastasia is currently reigning on Broadway at the Broadhurst Theater. So put on your finest tiara and get ready to take a journey to the past at this latest movie-turned-hit musical. In New York, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
How serious is the opioid problem in this country?
One of the things that I'm passionate about as Surgeon General is creating an environment where people can live a long and a healthy life. And unfortunately, we've seen that for the second year in a row, life expectancy in our country is going down. I'm a dad. That's not a country I want to leave for my children. The opioid epidemic is a major component of that. And I think as the Surgeon General, one of my jobs is to communicate to the American public the seriousness of the issue. 60,000 people dying each and every year from the opioid epidemic. touching all families, my family included, but also help them understand that there are things that everyone can do to help make this a safer country and to help us turn this tide.
What's the answer?
Well, the answer, and I hate to make it seem simplistic, but it's making sure we bring all the different parties to the table. This is a law enforcement issue. This is a prescribing issue. This is a parenting issue. This is an educational issue. We've got to make sure we show everyone how they can take a bite of the elephant and help us turn this thing around. And as Surgeon General, again, I want to make sure each of those individuals is at the table and knows what they can do to help us respond.
Well, there are always aftershocks immediately after campaigns. The first one of the 2018 midterms arrived pretty quickly this afternoon. The president fired his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. For more than a year, the president has publicly criticized and ridiculed Sessions, so it was not very surprising. Now the president has assured the ability of replacing Sessions with a new appointment since Republicans held the Senate. Clearly, he saw no reason to keep him around. Now, in theory, going forward, Jeff Sessions could challenge Doug Jones in 2020 to reclaim the Alabama Senate seat that he gave up to serve the president as AG. If he did that, he'd almost certainly win. He's one of the most popular people in the state. We asked a source close to Sessions, and he said that's probably not going to happen, and Sessions will probably just retire into private life. And if he does that, of course, we will wish him the best, but it will be, and we should say this, a loss for the country. Donald Trump's long-shot presidential campaign succeeded because he promised what so many voters wanted, and yet what so few politicians were willing to campaign on because they are cowards. Among his many promises, the most important was his pledge to reverse decades of deliberate neglect and treat our national borders like they're real, like our country matters. Nobody understood that message better than Jeff Sessions. He understood it immediately. He was one of the president's first and most unwavering supporters, I think the first in the Senate, and it was because of immigration. When the president took office, he gave up an essentially lifetime post representing Alabama to help fulfill Trump's mission. Sadly, the country was going another way. Within about 5 minutes of the 2016 election, Democrats decided their defeat was not about immigration or an abandoned middle class. It was instead, you'll remember, about Russia and the conspiracy between Vladimir Putin and Trump. Now, Republicans said they didn't believe that story. And yet, for some reason, many of them allowed Democrats to reframe the entire political debate in the country and make Russia the single biggest issue in American politics. But Jeff Sessions did not fall for that. He never let himself get distracted from the mission at hand. While everyone else obsessed over dossiers and FISA warrants, Sessions worried about the mission he was hired to do. He introduced a zero-tolerance approach to immigration prosecution. He treated illegal entry into the United States as a crime because it is a crime. His DOJ issued new opinions to restrict the exploitation of asylum laws in this country. He fought to strip federal funding of sanctuary cities. Courts ruled against him, but he did everything he could to get those things done. His department accelerated the hiring of immigration judges. Didn't get a lot of attention, but it's a big deal. More cases can be heard and deportations can take place more quickly. That's a service to America and also, by the way, to the people being held. On DACA, Sessions' refusal to defend that program, which is unconstitutional, really induced the president to end the program. Sessions wasn't just effective in immigration, though. He rolled back the Obama administration's soft-on-crime policies across the board. He pursued tougher penalties for drug dealers that earned the condemnation not just of liberals, but of wealthy libertarians who decided the war on drugs was a total disaster. This at a time when more people are dying every year of drug ODs than died during all of Vietnam. But the decadent decided, oh, it's immoral to prosecute drug dealing. Okay. The population knew differently because their relatives were dying. Of course, Sessions also ended the Obama administration's harassment of local law enforcement that helped drive a surge in violent crime in major cities. If you live in one, you know what we're talking about. Sessions did all of this even as the president who appointed him attacked him in public. Those attacks started more than a year ago. After one of the president's public rebukes, we traveled with Sessions just by chance to El Salvador, where he was pushing a fight against MS-13. Sessions made it clear he was in the cabinet to get results and would serve as long as the president would have him. He has said again and again in many different forums throughout this barrage that you should have acted differently. You should have not accused yourself from oversight of the Russia investigation. Do you agree with that?
Well, you know, I understand his feelings about it because this has been a big distraction for him. But Tucker, I talked to experts in the Department of Justice, people who are trained in that. I'm confident I made the right decision.
You said the criticism was hurtful, and the president has made it really clear that he doesn't seem to want you to run the Department of Justice. Will you continue to run it?
Well, he can make that clear at any time. I serve at the pleasure of the president. Yes. If he wants to make a change, he can certainly do so, and I would be glad to yield in that circumstance, no doubt about it.
Sessions wasn't perfect, obviously. He never seemed like an especially good administrator of a large agency. He sometimes got rolled by his staff. The Russia investigations have shown that FBI and DOJ are deeply politicized, and Sessions never seemed to fully get a handle on the permanent bureaucracy beneath them. But if you take 3 steps back, here's what you see. In an administration beset with constant leaks and infighting and people looking out for themselves and only themselves, Sessions was maybe one of the very few people who never forgot why he was there, to make America a better country. We can only hope that his replacement will do the same. Well, several pretty extreme Democrats got beaten at the polls last night, but some of them won and are set to be fixtures on the national political scene and the other cable channels for years to come. Tonight we launch our investigation into this and begin tracking these people. Lisa Booth is an independent Women's Voice senior fellow. She's here with details. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Tucker. How are you?
I'm great. So many, 470 different races, House and Senate, and it's hard to keep track of a lot of them. So tell us what we should be paying attention to.
Well, so one of those voices that we're going to be hearing a lot from next Congress is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She won her Newark 14th congressional district in a landslide, but I think she's going to be a little bit disappointed when she gets to Capitol Hill. Take a listen to this to find out why.
I would love to get inaugurated January 3rd, January 4th. We're signing health care, we're decarcerating our society.
Well, Tucker, as you know, members of Congress don't sign bills into law. They write them. Also, she was not inaugurated last night. She was elected tonight because that's what happens to members of Congress. I think she's also going to be a little bit disappointed when she finds out that all these free things she wants, we cannot afford, like free health care and college tuition. And Tucker, as you know, Maxine Waters also won her California congressional district in a landslide, and she has one thing on her mind. Take a listen to this.
They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, impeachment, impeachment.
So she is going to be the incoming House Financial Services Chairman, and clearly she's got impeachment on her mind, so this is what President Trump is up against next Congress.
I'm sorry to laugh. I mean, it's a self-centered laugh since I work in cable news, and they're guaranteeing another 2 years of great tape. Lisa, thank you. I know you'll be following this stuff for us as it progresses.
Thank you, Tucker. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stock market's up, unemployment is low, but the Republican Party still lost the House. How did that happen? Is their economic program still appealing to middle America? That's a question maybe we should talk about, and we will after the break.
Doctors hope a smart mosquito trap will serve as an early warning system for diseases like Zika. Average traps capture everything around them.
Mosquito get into the net.
This device can learn to only catch mosquitoes that can be deadly.
If we want the Aedes aegypti, which is a yellow fever mosquito, or the Asian tiger mosquito that carries Zika virus, we will train this trap to only catch those mosquitoes.
Sensors close the doors when they detect the mosquito's wing length and wing beats per second. The 64 cells close individually. The trap ignores nuisance mosquitoes or mosquitoes that are annoying but don't spread disease. The device, which is developed by Microsoft, is connected to an app which updates doctors in real time.
We can quickly and immediately know what mosquitoes that carry diseases in the area. And also, the trap can attract and can get a mosquito that's already just fed, had the blood meal, and we can know whether the blood meal came from a human being or a bird.
After Hurricane Harvey, mosquito control workers placed traps around the Houston area to determine if disease-spreading mosquito populations were growing. The traps caught thousands of mosquitoes, and they were tested, but doctors still had trouble determining important information.
When it comes into the chamber, the temperature is recorded, the barometer is recorded, the humidity is recorded, and the time is recorded. So that's data that's coming in instantly that we didn't have before.
While Harris County has 10 traps in use, one health official says they're not going to stop diseases like Zika or dengue, but will enhance their ability to detect them. In Texas, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Pop-up candy Wonderland comes to life in New York City.
This is really an extraordinary candy wonderland where everybody comes kind of to escape the world and really just unlock that inner child within all of us.
For Candytopia co-founder and global candy artist Jackie Sorkin, sharing her creations is a dream come true.
It's been something that, as a kid, I was obsessed with candy. I grew up watching Willy Wonka. I kind of modeled my life off the principles of the movie. You know, it's dream big. One day you work hard enough, you dream big enough, you'll find your golden ticket.
Candytopia features more than a dozen unique rooms and larger-than-life, sugary, sweet, interactive installations.
We work very quickly, to be honest with you. We work like crazy people in our company. But Candytopia in New York City was built in, I want to say, in about a month. This is the culmination of so much blood, sweat, and tears and sugar.
And it takes a lot of candy to pull off.
We have hundreds of thousands of pounds of candy that will run through these doors, from the art to the consumption of our guests to the retail side. Literally so much candy, it just comes out of every corner.
Candytopia's first location in Santa Monica drew sold-out crowds during its limited run. And after New York, Candytopia will be making a stop in San Francisco with plans for other cities to come. In New York, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
To be who I am. I'm not red or blue. I'm the guy who follows the green money. I always want to have a certain edge that isn't out there. Having one extra nugget or piece of information, there's no substitute for it.
Well, by the measures that Washington uses, the American economy looks great. Stock market, of course, is up and has been for a long time. Unemployment is historically low. GDP is fine. But look beneath the surface, and there are ominous signs. Young people cannot afford homes or cars or to have children. The most common living arrangement of young people is with their parents. Student loans and other debt are strangling the country's middle class. With that in mind, does either party have an economic message to remedy the concerns of the average American family? Austin Goolsbee is an economics professor at the University of Chicago, and he joins us today. Austin, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, great to see you, Tucker.
So I noticed last night in the return something interesting. So everyone we know is completely committed to free trade as a matter of religious faith, as you know. But I saw in a number of these races, and I've noticed this for the past couple of years, voters are very distrustful of our trade policies. And we saw it last night with Sherrod Brown winning in Ohio.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, so why? It's both parties. It's absolutely both parties. The consensus in economics is bipartisan, pretty much, increasingly. So should we not reassess at all? If the majority of the country is not served by a policy, doesn't that mean it's problematic, or no?
Well, look, I'm an economics professor, so nobody's going to out free trade me. I think that though there are concerns on both parties, we should re-examine. We should always re-examine. In this case, I think that in many of the circumstances where people are the most upset, it wasn't actually trade that led to the problem, but I might be wrong. We should re-examine.
Well, look, I'm hardly an economist, so that's probably in my favor most of the time. But so I can't prove that either. Here's what I know for certain is that the measurements that we use, and certainly that economics professors use to judge the health of an economy, don't begin to describe the experience of tens of millions of Americans. Basically, so like if young people can't afford to get married or have kids, why does GDP, why is that a meaningful measure of anything?
Yeah, look, you're preaching the choir on that one. The measure of GDP, and certainly just the average GDP for the whole country, is not the only measure. It's probably not even the most important measure. We should be looking at median incomes. That is how much the middle class is actually bringing home in their pocket. Right. And most of those measures of wages and income have not grown as fast as these broader measures of how corporations are doing and stuff like that.
Do you think there's any more important measure of a country's long-term prospects than how many young people get married and have kids? What would be a more important measure than that?
I agree with you that is an important one, though there are a lot of things going on. That's been a trend for a long time, that people are getting married later and starting families later.
But if you look at the surveys on it, people consistently say the main driver, and it's complex as all human behavior is, but the main driver is economic. We can't afford it. And so what's more ominous than that?
The only thing I'd highlight, the only thing I would highlight, I'm not meaning to minimize that. It is important. it is also important in modern societies that people get as much education and skill as they can, because that's going to raise their wages. And when people go to school for longer, that tends to put off when they're getting married, when they're starting their families. So
which do you think is more, just as a philosophical question, which is more important for a society? Being successful at an investment bank or having children?
Well, I would definitely vote for the kids over the investment bank. But at the same time, we want people to get education and raise their skill level. That will allow them to provide for their families. That will allow the economy to grow. That will allow it to be spread more than just in a very concentrated way.
But the opposite has happened, is that? But I know you're a professional academic, so maybe you don't want to admit it. But literally the opposite has happened. As universal college has become a reality, and it basically is a reality now, the country's become more stratified. So like the opposite has happened from what you've just said.
Well,
why? I wonder.
Only about a third of people have a college degree. It hasn't become universal at all.
Compare that to 30 years ago or 50 years ago. Everybody who wants a college degree can essentially get one. Okay.
Educational attainment has stalled out in the country, and I think that's a big component of why inequalities continue to rise.
Are you being serious? Because the country was more equal when like 5% had college degrees. Wait a second. Okay. I'm sorry, they're telling me I have to wrap up.
1900 to 1970, we saw a dramatic expansion of educational attainment. And we had shrinking inequality over that time. The middle class was doing a lot better. Starting around 1970 to 1975, you see educational attainment stall out, and you see inequality start to rise.
I don't believe that's true, but now they're telling me I really do have to go. Austin Goolsbee, I hope you'll come back so we can talk that through.
It's always fun to see you, Tucker.
Thank you. Well, the left argued consistently that a vote against them was a vote for racism. They've argued that in the last two elections, almost universally, it didn't work, but they're still arguing it. Why is that? We'll be right back.
The midterm fallout, insight and analysis on the race results, and impact on America's political landscape. Our primetime lineup breaks it all down tonight.
I couldn't deal. And I knew if I would have stayed out there, I would have been dead by now.
34-year-old Thomas Wilson, or TC as most call him, grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Over the past 10 or 20 years, you think things have gotten better or worse here?
They've gotten worse. You can't walk down the street. You can't walk 5 blocks without running into a drug dealer or an abandoned house that people break into to get high.
More than 35% of the male population in Reading lives in poverty. The town tends to lack traditional support systems, such as churches and community centers, and some feel this means when people fall, they fall faster and harder. TC says his trouble started in childhood.
You were on your own at 15. How'd that happen?
My mom, she had problems. She had a lot of money issues, and I was paying rent at the time, and money wasn't going towards what I was giving her to go towards. And so I stopped giving her money, and she kicked me out.
Despite being on his own, TC says he tapped into a strong work ethic to earn a high school diploma, a degree more tthan a third of Reading's residents don't have.
I worked at Walmart. Then after that, I worked as a CNA at Pennsburg Manor. Good job, good place.
He fell in love and got engaged to a woman named Lisa.
On December 7th, 2011, while I was at work, she passed away.
He found her on the bathroom floor, dead from a brain aneurysm.
And then what did you do?
Started drinking really heavy, just to try not to think about it.
Where did that take you?
Straight to jail after a few years.
Yay!
You know, I got involved with heroin and lost my job. I stopped caring about everything.
Yay!
Reading is one of many cities that suffered with the decline of heavy industry and railroads, and things only got worse during the recession of 2007. By 2010, Reading had the highest share of civilians living in poverty in the nation, leading to spikes in drug abuse and violence and homelessness.
You know, I hung out with the wrong people, got involved with drugs, just to try to numb everything.
Then TC met Megan, his second fiancée.
We were getting high together, stealing together, and she got pregnant. And our daughter was only 6 months old when we both got put in jail.
Even after his release, the drug use continued.
And then it happened again. I came home from work and she was dead in the bathroom. She relapsed while I was at work, and my 3-year-old daughter was home alone with her for 2 hours. And I don't even know how to explain that feeling. Once is hard enough. Trying to wrap my head around everything, I just couldn't cope, I guess.
What do you want America to know about your struggle?
We still have pride. We're still men. We're still trying. And there's a lot more men still trying to get better.
Democrats have maintained a pretty consistent storyline for the past couple of years, really. Democrats have to win, and if they don't win, there's only really one explanation for it: racism. The press, of course, their handmaidens, have eagerly helped them push that storyline.
There is still a silent majority who responds to these racially coded as probably the most generous way you would describe it.
He won, and he won, unfortunately, with a message that was racially motivated, that was false about this invasion of migrants.
The dumbest people all work on TV, but you knew that. Turns out voters didn't care for this. They really don't like being called evil. That's not a way to win their vote. It's also untrue. Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum both lost last night. So did Republican John James in Michigan. But for some reason, the left isn't scrambling to call Michigan voters racist for re-electing Debbie Stabenow. That's kind of funny. Christopher Harris is executive director of Unhyphenated America. He joins us tonight. Mr. Harris, thank you very much for coming on. I wonder if we've reached like peak hysteria on this question. This is my preferred outcome. And we can all kind of just agree that it's not really the issue most of the time. Sometimes it is, but mostly it's about economics, and we can debate those. Or are they going to continue doing this, do you think?
They're going to continue doing it. They're like a dog on a leash or a hamster on a wheel. This is what they know. They only know how to do that. I mean, but they want to talk about some people being racist, but as you said, they don't want to talk about Michigan. How about I have a friend of mine, Liz Mattori. She ran for the 2nd Congressional District in Maryland. She lost by 157,000 votes. So the question is to the people of Maryland, are you racist? Right. You didn't vote for a black female Republican, which she's actually first-generation American. How come those 157,000 people didn't vote for her? Are they sexist? See, this is what happens. If we're going to play this game, then let's play this game. Let's be consistent with it. They don't want to play the game because it doesn't work. It doesn't pass the smell test.
So then why should Republicans or conservatives play the game? I mean, when they're accused unfairly, and it's transparently false and silly, of bigotry or being immoral, why don't they just laugh?
Well, that's the beauty of President Donald Trump, right? I mean, he's nowhere near racist, and I saw something recently said that he's post-racial, and I think that's probably the most accurate depiction of him. He's post-racial. He knows this is all bunk. He laughs it off, and that's what every Republican should do. Every congressional Republican, every Republican around the nation should learn that lesson. Don't take the dog whistle. They're going to call you racist. I said that on the show before. Every Republican has been called a racist. Why do you keep falling for it?
Well, I think for people who aren't in the public eye, I mean, there's a real threat. I mean, for one thing, you lose your job over it. People lose their jobs.
Definitely.
Screaming lunatics show up at your house and scare your children. I mean, there are real costs, but maybe we de-escalate by laughing in the face of absurdity.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's what I do all the time. I laugh at people, and especially when somebody tries to push it on me, I mean, I let them know that I don't feel 1 ounce of inferiority to anyone, and ultimately, that's what they're saying to people of color, black people, Hispanics, whatever like that. They're saying that we see you as inferior, and so we're the great white hope who's going to come out there and protect you, but I don't need you to protect me. I can protect myself. I don't need any special privileges. I have the Constitution. How about we just stand up to the Constitution? That's all we're really asking for.
Doesn't that? I mean, it's a long conversation, but doesn't it drive you crazy?
Absolutely. And my wife has to hear me kind of rant about things on occasion. God bless her for putting up with me on that. But yeah, it drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy too. Christopher Harris, thank you as always. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Much ahead in our coverage of the midterm results. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Carlos Leon.
I'm Jeff Bell. We're both innovators. We like to look at what's out there, and then we like to recreate and build new programs, better programs for people to give them better workouts so they're more challenged all the time.
You're actually working out your whole entire body as one. So that's what we specialize in. And today we have something special. We're going to involve our Belly on One into our primal. The great thing about our workouts, you don't need any weights. All you need is you. So the first exercise we're going to do is a jump in squats. You want to make sure all your weight is on your heel. You distribute your weight nice and high up. 7. Okay, we're going to go into a burpee next. But when you do a burpee, you want to make sure your back is flat and your stomach is tight. Your core is really lifted. It's really lifted. 2. 3. We're not doing traditional push-ups. Today we're going to do it side to side. Moving from the right, moving to the left. So this is what it's going to look like.
Push-ups from the floor, which is a dynamic move for your chest, your shoulders, your core, even some of your hip muscles. You always want to make sure that the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder all make a straight line. So when you come down, you notice my elbows are out in the direction of my wrist. If I do things like this, it can tend to drive them too much. 5, 6, strong, 7. Good. We're going to transition to primal now. Now we're going to go into what's called the monkey crawl, which is a big load on the shoulders, the core, and your hips. A lot of mobility. It's a very aerobic move, so it's going to challenge you on many levels. And we're going to reach across to the right. And the goal is to put your hands down, hop your legs up beyond the hands, then go back to the other side, and we're going to move forward for 6 counts. The last one, hop over 6, keep your right leg up. Now slide that right leg under. We're going to transition into crab calls.
Now your quads are taking a hit, your hamstrings and your glutes.
Glutes, core, your shoulders are getting lots of mobility. We're getting stronger. We're working on the hips, the buttock muscles. Pause, lift the left arm up. Now we're going to transition under hip mobility, shoulder straight. We're going into our next move called the lizard crawl. You're going to exaggerate, reach your right arm way out. Good, now push off your legs gently, lift up the left leg. Now swing the left leg forward, right behind the left elbow. Stay nice and low. Feel those shoulders work, feel that core work. Now we're going to go into our last primal move for today. It's called the flea hop. This is a big load and demand on your legs. It's aerobic, it's power, and it's explosiveness. Builds agility and mobility into the hips. And this is like the jump squat, except that we're in motion. Just like a flea. To land toe, ball to heel. If you do it wrong, Emily, will you show us the wrong way one time? See how her toes are off the ground? She's landed on her heels. That hits a shock wave all the way up her body, which is not really good for you. One more time, and lower back is taking a hit. Shoulders, spine is taking a hit. Do one more time, land the right time this time. So she goes toe ball to heel. So the ankle and the foot absorb all that shock, so we don't send it up the body. 4, 5, 6, good. Beautiful, good job. Good job. Yeah. Good job, man. All right.
Hello to our friends in France. Thanks for choosing Fox and watching us on Orange. For the latest headlines, visit foxnews.com. And for your financial news, check out foxbusiness.com.
Here's one lesson from yesterday. Nobody really cares what celebrities think. You could have guessed that 2 years ago when dozens of stars made a Fight Club song, which somehow failed to deliver Pennsylvania for Hillary Clinton. We saw it again last night. Oprah campaigned for Abrams in Georgia. Taylor Swift campaigned in Tennessee for the Democrat. If Hollywood had its way, Beto O'Rourke wouldn't just be senator, he'd be king. Instead, all of them lost. That's a good sign for America. Everyone in LA still seems to think Beto O'Rourke will be president. That's an almost certain sign he won't be. Congratulations to America. That is it for us tonight. We'll be back. The show that is a sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. I'm taking 2 days off. I'll be back Monday. In the meantime...
Get real news, real honest opinion here with Kilmeade, Starnes, Shalhoub, and Benson and Hart, along with news updates at the top and bottom of the hour. Fox News Radio.
This is a Fox News alert. Another mass shooting. This one in a bar full of college students in California. I'm Dave Anthony.
I don't understand how people could think this way.
She dove to the floor after he opened fire.
He was just shooting in my general direction, and you could hear the whistling of the bullets and then them hitting.
Within minutes, law enforcement arrived.
Upon going through the front door, the sheriff's sergeant was struck multiple times with gunfire.
He later died. Ventura County Sheriff Jeff Dean says 11 other people were murdered. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal's live outside the bar where it happened in Thousand Oaks.
Dave, the Ventura County Sheriff says they did find 11 people killed inside the Borderline Bar and Grill here. Additionally, they say they found the shooter dead as well, but the 12th victim was that Sheriff's Deputy Ron Heelis, who ran in to confront the shooter just minutes after the shooting happened. Matt Winterstrom was inside at the time with his friend when he started to hear gunshots.
And I looked over and I saw a tall, dark figure with a handgun unloading shots into my friend working the counter, basically, a young girl my age.
A law enforcement source told the LA Times that the shooter is a 29-year-old who was armed with a Glock handgun, as well as a smoke bomb type device, Dave.
Jessica, President Trump called it terrible, tweeting God bless the victims and their families, also saying the police acted with great bravery. The president's looking for a new attorney general. The day after he ousted Jeff Sessions, Matt Whitaker's now the acting AG.
Whitaker is under scrutiny for an op-ed he wrote last year about a red line he said special counsel Mueller should not cross. Quote, investigating Donald Trump's finances or his family's finances falls completely outside of the realm of his 2016 campaign. That goes beyond the scope of the appointment of the special counsel.
Fox's Catherine Herridge. Democrats want Whitaker to recuse himself from the investigation like Sessions did, which angered the president. This is Fox News.
Looking for opinion done right? Then go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now. Fox Nation is the new streaming subscription service that will have exclusive daily shows, incredible documentaries, and must-see on-demand programming. That's the perfect complement for every Fox fan. Plus, go to FoxNation.com, pre-order now, and get one-of-a-kind exclusive merchandise. Available now, but for a limited time only. Don't miss your chance to become a founding member. Go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now.
Shepard Smith. There's so many streams of information coming. Some are designed to distract you and to mislead you. When news is breaking, you have to slow down. We have to begin with what's most important. I'm here to find out what happened, to report it without fear or favor, in context and perspective, and to be honest, brutally honest about every bit of it. We work endless hours to make sure that when we deliver it to you as fact, it's a fact.
Shepard Smith on Fox News Channel. Real news, real honest opinion.
There's an update on former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who got caught up in the special counsel's investigation for his work in Ukraine before 2016.
Federal prosecutors unsealing new charges against former Paul Manafort business partner Jeffrey Yohai. Yohai divorced Manafort's daughter last August after pleading guilty to misusing real estate loan funds. The new charges allege he engaged in several financial fraud schemes totaling over $21 million while out on bail and awaiting sentencing next year. He could face 20 years if convicted. Meanwhile, special counsel Robert Mueller's team dropped criminal charges with Manafort in exchange for his cooperation with a Russia investigation. Manafort is due to be sentenced next February. In Washington, Sean Langell, Fox News.
Well, the elections are over, but the vote counting is not. Several House races remain undecided, so Democrats could gain a few more seats. The Arizona Senate race remains too close to call, while in Florida, a recount may be coming, with Republican Rick Scott holding a less than 0.5% lead, trying to unseat Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, who refuses to concede. In Georgia's governor's race, Democrat Stacey Abrams also refuses to give up, but Republican Brian Kemp said today he's the winner. She cannot overcome his lead. The second man who took a pickaxe to President Trump's star in Hollywood has been sentenced.
Austin Clay pleaded no contest to charges of vandalism to President Trump's Hollywood Walk of Fame star. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, 20 days of community service, as well as 1 day in county jail. The district attorney's office also says Clay has to pay about $9,400 in restitution. Clay turned himself over to police soon after smashing the star, which was reduced to rubble. He told reporters back in August that the vandalism was a just act and he wanted to bring about positive political change. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Well, just like the first time that Trump star was vandalized in 2016, it was quickly repaired. On Wall Street, stock futures are down before the opening bell. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Here we go. The Brian Kilmeade Show will begin in 30 seconds. Enjoy. News radio studios in New York City, giving you opinions and facts with a positive approach. It's Brian Kilmeade.
Hi, everybody. Brian Kilmeade. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to be here the day after the midterm elections. 2 days after the midterm elections, and we'll discuss a lot about that. But all morning long on Fox and Friends, we've been covering the horrible news that about 11:26 last night, a gunman opened up fire at a dance club, a country dance club in Thousand Oaks, California. I know the area well. I used to do All Sports Radio, and one of the affiliates was in Woodland Hills in a mall, believe it or not, on 690 AM. So I used to travel through Topanga Canyon in Malibu, right up, and I wasn't a rich guy, I just had a small apartment in Malibu. Travel right up to Topanga Canyon, and you would be right near the 101, and you'd be right near this club. And the club is a place that you would think would be impervious to crime. You wouldn't even think there'd be a fender bender around there, but right off the 101, a gunman walked in about 11:20, killed 11 people, probably hurt at least 18 more. Some got to the hospital on their own recognizance, got evaluated by the fire chief and pushed forward. We'll discuss all that. The gunman is dead, took his own life, thought to be a 29-year-old. According to the LA Times, the gunman drove his mother's car and opened up fire. And according to one of the eyewitnesses, 21-year-old woman said that who spent her life in the military with her dad was in the military, and she said, I've had guns my whole life. He seemed to have a 40. He also seemed to have a stance. He also seemed very composed and could reload within 5 seconds. So we know he was rehearsed. He knows what he was doing, and we know that he has caused great damage and terror. Having said that, we'll cover the latest as it unfolds, including the death of an officer, the 29-year vet of the force. He could have retired 4 years ago, but wanted a few more years. He loved it so much. He was the first one in, and he died of his wounds. We'll discuss that, including this.
Now, with the stories you need to know, it's Brian's Big Three. Number 3.
Votes remain to be counted. There are voices that are waiting to be heard, and we believe our chance for a stronger Georgia is just within reach.
Really?
We cannot seize it until all voices are heard.
Right. Stacey Abrams, an inspiring politician, sure, refuses to concede an election. She clearly lost to Brian Kemp. The results are not all in for the midterms, and there are wild, irresponsible accusations of voter fraud in Georgia, and one of which is from Howard Dean. Unbelievable that he would be that irresponsible. And stubborn astronauts refuse to admit he lost in a race for the Senate seat in Florida. We'll see if he gets his recount. More than likely he will, but it could be done as early as Saturday.
Number 2.
If I may ask another question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried? That's enough. Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask.
That's enough. Put down the mic. I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them.
That is Jim Acosta and the president putting him in his place. He was disrespectful, embarrassing, and his actions disconcerting. That's how I will describe the tone after a traditional press conference of reflection after a midterm election. Jim Acosta continues to put himself ahead of the network. If I did that at this place, I would be suspended, certainly pulled off any White House beat, because I have lost all credibility, especially for the people that report the news. I would have gotten fired, you would have gotten fired, and any other president, this guy would be vilified from coast to coast. But evidently with President Trump, anything goes.
Number 1.
I find the timing very suspect. Our paramount view is that any attorney general, whether this one or another one, should not be able to interfere with the Mueller investigation in any way. They should not be able to end it. They should not be able to limit it.
Chuck Schumer, to the surprise of none, outrage for most Dems as the Attorney General Jeff Sessions was asked to leave by the President of the United States. And the Mueller probe has a new supervisor who has already shown disdain for the endless probe from Robert Mueller. What does this mean for Mueller? I think it puts a fire underneath him big time. Jeff Sessions being out of here, he's a great guy. I've met him a couple of times. He's a good guy. I think he was overwhelmed by the position. And fundamentally, he should have resigned when it was clear he couldn't oversee a Russian probe that has hamstrung this administration like it would any administration. But he didn't. He hung on. He licensed it out to a deputy attorney general who was recommended to a brand new president who didn't know anything about Rod Rosenstein, who now seems to be conflicted. But now they're not focused on that. They're focused on his his chief of staff, who is now acting director. Because this guy has written before in the past, he's been critical of the probe. He also has been critical of the fact that they are looking into Donald Trump's finances. The president said that's a bridge too far, and I believe it's a bridge too far. This guy's name is Matthew Whitaker. He's an acting AG. Some say that he can't be acting AG. I think he can. Trey Gowdy weighed in last night, who, by the way, not surprised that he got fired, but is surprised it kind of happened quick. Cut one.
It was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen after the election. I did not think it would happen before all the votes had been counted. But he's been a proverbial dead man walking for several months now.
So he handed his request in, his resignation letter. Didn't try to hide the fact that it wasn't his idea. Jeff Sessions writes, at your request, I'm submitting my resignation. Since today I was honored to be sworn in as AG. I came to work at the Department of Justice, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't good at the job. And makes it worse for Republicans is Jeff Sessions' seat is now in the hands of a Democrat because they nominated the unelectable Roy Moore. Thanks, Steve Bannon. Republicans can thank him. So Matthew Whitaker is the acting AG. Matthew Whitaker is the acting AG and somebody who's been almost as critical as the president on the Mueller probe. Last month, he wrote this in a CNN op-ed. He was also on CNN, too. Here's an excerpt from his USA Today op-ed. Acting Director FBI Director James Comey's statement on Tuesday that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton could have been charged with violating several code sections, and he detailed the evidence to support bringing criminal charges. Yet, Comey's judgment was that no reasonable prosecutor would bring that case. Do you understand where he stood when it comes to the Comey side of the corruption? He also talked heavily about her emails. And according about the Mueller probe, he said looking into the financial records of President Trump relating to the Trump Organization are unrelated to the 2016 election. And according to these reports, sources described an investigation that has widened to focus on financial crimes, some unconnected to the 2016 election. They go on to cite new enforcement sources say that non-Russia related leads that involve Trump associates are being referred to the special counsel. He pointed this out, Matthew Whitaker, when he was before he became chief of staff at for the Attorney General, that he has a problem with that. Now, it's all of a sudden, Democrats realize he's in charge, not Rosenstein, and they've gone off the reservation. Listen to Chuck Schumer panicking. Cut to.
But I'd say this. Protecting Mueller and his investigation is paramount. It would create a constitutional crisis if this were a prelude to ending or greatly limiting the Mueller investigation.
Mueller should end the investigation, and this lights a fire under him, especially if you look back in 2017. I'm saying Matt Whitaker is going to be fair, I am sure. I've never met him, talked to people that know him. But here's what he said in 2017 that has Democrats panicking. Cut 8.
So I can see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
Well, could he grind the $40 million probe? Could he grind it into the ground? Yeah, well, he could at least ask Robert Mueller, what's your scope? We have not seen the new scope letter. And when are you finished? How about that? Trey Gowdy, who has seen more paperwork and seen more information than just about anybody other than Robert Mueller, said this last night about Chuck Schumer's outrage. Cut 4.
There's never been a prosecutor that just had unfettered power to go investigate whatever the heck he or she wanted to do. If you're a state prosecutor, you can't investigate federal crimes. If you're in New York, you can't investigate things in Idaho. So the notion that we're going to create a special counsel that has no boss, no jurisdictional strictures at all, is just typical Chuck Schumer, and I think it's why so few people take him seriously.
Wow. That's why, typical Chuck Schumer, he also went on to say to Trey Gowdy that CNN is going to be very disappointed at the end of this because they're going to find out there is no Russian collusion with the Trump administration. And Trey Gowdy has told us before in the past on this very show, if there was, he'd be the first one looking for a prosecution because this is when a president corroborating with another country, even if it's from his party. By the way, he's never met him. 1-866-408-7669. We're going to come back, and we're going to be talking to Tom Bevan of Real Crow Politics. There's many races that have not been decided, but we do know this. The Democrats have the House, and the Republicans have increased their advantage in the Senate. We'll bring you more on what it means, especially the nice words that both Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump had for each other yesterday. Could that be some coming together, at least some issues? Or are we just back to gloves off and fisticuffs? You're listening to The Brian Kilmeade Show.
Brian Kilmeade, 1/3 of Fox and Friends, 100% of The Brian Kilmeade Show.
All right, let's face it, we're living in uncertain times, and it's becoming even more challenging to ensure one's own personal safety. Plus, it's getting darker earlier, so more important than ever to be vigilant and aware of your surroundings. But you can feel more confident with Tiger Lady. Tiger Lady is a revolutionary self-defense tool based on a cat's retractable claws. When you make a fist, 3 claws come out like a real-life Wolverine. Besides, putting keys between your fingers doesn't work in the age of the smart key, you know what I mean? Tiger Lady is lightweight and designed to collect DNA. Tiger Lady doesn't require training. It's safe to carry and legal in all 50 states. And Tiger Lady is recommended by police and self-defense instructors. So go to TigerLady.com for a limited time. Get a pack of 4 at a savings of over 15%. As an exclusive offer for my listeners, use code BRIAN to save an additional 15% plus free shipping. Go to TigerLady.com and get that extra sense of safety for you or someone you love. Find your fierce with Tiger Lady by going to TigerLady.com today.
Looking for opinion done right? Then go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now. Fox Nation is the new streaming subscription service that will have exclusive daily shows, incredible documentaries, and must-see on-demand programming. That's the perfect complement for every Fox fan. Plus, go to FoxNation.com, pre-order now, and get one-of-a-kind exclusive merchandise. Available now, but for a limited time only. Don't miss your chance to become a founding member. Go to FoxNation.com and pre-order right now.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now. InventHelp keeps your idea confidential and explains every step of the invention process. Join the thousands of people just like you who chose InventHelp to pursue their idea. We are experienced. We are working for you. We are InventHelp. Get started with your idea. Call for free information.
Call us at 1-800-545-0785. That's 1-800-545-0785.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
So you're giving up? Just like that?
Giving up on what?
On getting an inheritance from a distant relative.
Don't you think if there were a billionaire in the family, we'd know about it by now?
Listen to me. We are one phone call away from riding horses on our own private polo grounds. One call from christening yachts, having a butler, using summer as a verb.
How do you figure?
Look, everyone's got a rich uncle somewhere. It's statistics. So the best thing you can do is just prepare for the inevitable.
Right, which is why I thought maybe it would be smart to take control of my finances. You know, start using a budget, get out of debt, set some retirement goals.
Budgets? Debt? You watch your mouth. Retirement shouldn't be a goal for us. It should be a way of life.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A mom from Utah makes the Dean's List for giving birth to her baby girl on the way to the hospital. Emily started having contractions just after midnight. She and her husband couldn't get a babysitter until 4 p.m. that day, and she thought it would be fine.
Looking back at my other deliveries and everything, I thought we had a lot more time.
When they finally left for the hospital, their car broke down. Luckily, Emily's mom was following close behind. Emily jumped in her mom's car, and her husband stayed behind to get a tow. But Emily's mom didn't know how to get to the hospital. It became clear that Emily was running out of time. Then rush hour traffic stopped their frantic rush to the hospital. Little Sophia was ready to enter the world.
And just saying over and over, not now, not here, wait, please, wait.
It was a happy ending to one hectic entrance. Congratulations, Acor family, for sharing this amazing story of how Emily was born. You all made the Dean's List. Janice Dean, Fox News.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right, that's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-96-STEEL. Call now to lock in your price. 866-96-STEEL. That's 866-967-8335.
His mouth to your ears. It's Brian Kilmeade.
Hey, we're back. We're trying to make heads or tails of this election. Was it going to be plus 35? Is it going to be plus 26? And how many Senate seats will the Republicans have for their advantage? Because some have not been decided. You got Arizona as well as Florida, and it looks like Montana, I guess, surprising because John Tester wasn't leading. I guess they just feel as though he's going to win, so they're going to give it to him. Joining us now is Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics. Hey, Tom, can you tell me what is happening, first off, with Governor Scott and Senator Nelson in that Senate seat in Florida?
Well, I mean, it looks like it's headed to a recount, but I think there's some question as to whether that's going to happen or not. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I mean, because it's not like it's just a couple thousand votes. I mean, it's 20+ thousand votes. It's a substantial amount. So we shall see how that plays out.
Well, who makes that decision? Who makes that decision?
Well, it should be. I mean, there should be a law in the books there. It's usually like 0.5% will trigger a recount, but you can petition for a recount if perhaps they're trying to like marshal evidence to show that there was, voter irregularities or something like that. Well, like I said, we'll have to see. And then in Arizona, we're waiting on these early votes, absentee ballots that are being counted. McSally has about, I think, 16,000 vote lead there right now.
Yeah.
So, but apparently there are a couple 100,000 votes that are out. So there's certainly enough in there for Sinema to make up the difference. So we'll have to wait and see how long that process takes. But right now, Republicans, are up 3 Senate seats. Tester went to the Democrats, so it could go. I mean, if in the recount, Nelson winds up getting ahead, and Sinema gets ahead, it could go down to 1. I suspect it'll end up stay at 3. Worst case scenario for Republicans, it'll drop to 2, and they'll lose Arizona, but they're still going to end up obviously.
Well, do you put Nelson? Do you put Scott in the Republican column?
I do.
Okay, so you're ignoring the intention recount.
Yeah. I mean, he won the race. I mean, he was declared the winner. So
by us, but was he declared by the state?
Well, he's got. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it has to be certified by the Secretary of State, and that process will go on. But he's, for the time being, we're putting him in the Republican column.
I was stunned by what's going on in the governor's race in Georgia. Now, the Georgia rules say you have to get over 50% or there's going to be a runoff. So it looks as though that Brian Kemp got over 50%. He's the attorney general. So not deciding to quit, and I understand how hard she worked, but Abrams does not want to quit the race, will not concede. Howard Dean weighed in yesterday. He says Abrams should not concede. The election was almost certainly stolen by a candidate who supervised his own election. How irresponsible a statement is that from the former DNC chairperson?
It's terrible. I mean, honestly, it's like this entire thing has been the fact that he's Secretary of State. I mean, so the election is illegitimate because he's running. It's just not. It's very irresponsible. And listen, if they've got proof of something, put the proof forward and let's see it. Otherwise, again, this is very corrosive to our democracy. And we keep hearing these things that Republicans are going to be, Trump's going to be the one who's not going to accept the results. People were saying that before the election, saying, when they were expecting a blue wave and that Trump was going to deny the results, et cetera, et cetera. And yet it's the Democrats who've been denying the election results. And I get it. I mean, it was hard fought. And Democrats, in their minds, this was, Republicans have been operating voter suppression schemes all around the country in every state. They also think it's racism is playing into it. So there are a lot of emotions on the Democratic side. But again, in the end, it's like if you have proof that something was some law was broken, some crime was committed, bring it forward. Otherwise, the vote's the vote. And then part of our democracy is you accept that, you congratulate the winner, and you move on.
And to President Obama's credit, he forced Hillary Clinton to do that because he said you lost. You pick up the phone and call. Barack Obama knew he hated the fact that Donald Trump won, but he said you've got to call and concede, and she finally did. So people have to understand there's something bigger than them. This is a governor's race. Money poured in, celebrities showed up, and Brian Kemp won the race still in Georgia, basically because of her stance on guns and Medicaid for all more than anything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just updated the Real Clear Politics website for this morning, and there are 2 or 3, 4 different articles saying, there's one in the Washington Post saying that Andrew Gillum lost his race because of racism. But, we also posted a piece from the Tampa Bay Times that details exactly how, and I'm not saying race didn't play any part in it, but to say that it was the decisive factor, he had this FBI probe, which the reporter was showing how that undercut his support in the final days, along with the fact that he was promoting a liberal agenda that was, he put a nice face on it because he was a very charismatic guy. But at the end, he was promoting policies that were left-wing, out of the mainstream of where Florida is right now. And those were the reasons that he lost, not necessarily because of racism. Although I'm not denying that I'm sure there were some folks in Florida who that's what informed their vote. But by and large, that's not the reason he lost that race.
We're talking with Tom Bevan. Tom, lastly, I just wanted you to hear President Trump yesterday, cut 28.
And also to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And I give her a lot of credit. She works very hard, and she's worked long and hard. Hopefully we can all work together next year to continue delivering for the American people, including on economic growth, infrastructure, trade, lowering the cost of prescription drugs. These are some of the things that the Democrats do want to work on, and I really believe we'll be able to do that.
What about that tone? The fact that he says, I'll give Republican votes to make sure she becomes Speaker, she deserves it. We only have a minute left. What's your thought?
I mean, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, Trump was basically like, listen, let's play nice, and I'll be willing to work with you, and I'll even be willing to, and he basically said, without actually saying that, he'd be willing to consider raising taxes in other areas to offer a tax cut to the middle class. At the same time, he was also saying, look, if you guys bring the heat and start investigating me and all this stuff, like that, two can play at that game, and it's going to get ugly. So we'll see. I'm skeptical that there will be any bipartisan stuff in Congress. Remember, of the congressmen that got wiped away, the Republican congressmen, a lot of them were moderates in these suburban districts. So I think that the Freedom Caucus's hand was really strengthened by the result of this, and that's going to make it even tougher for compromise.
Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, thanks so much. Ben Dominique next.
Get informed with a positive spin. Brian Kilmeade.
The most ridiculous explanation I have heard for a murder was it was a fist fight between a 60-year-old out-of-shape reporter and 12 Saudi Arabians in a consulate in Turkey. Why they think they can buy it, I don't understand. And by the way, we have to have relations with Saudi Arabia. Everyone agrees with that, except for people looking to make the president look incompetent by dealing with it.
Listen live weekday mornings or subscribe to the podcast at BrianKilmeadeShow.com.
Last night we put on an epic light show.
Yeah, we did.
The crowd loved us. We love the crowd.
Wait, but they're all...
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Chris Foster. A 29-year Sheriff's Department veteran who rushed into a bar where shots were being fired in Thousand Oaks, California,
is among the 13 people dead, including the gunman. Taylor Whitler says she heard a gunshot behind her.
So I glanced back, and it was this taller man with a gun shooting multiple people.
Around 20 people are reported hurt. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's hospitalized with 3 fractured ribs. She fell before what's called the investiture ceremony for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, welcoming him to the court. Kavanaugh will not participate in that tradition of walking down the marble steps of the Supreme Court because of security concerns. Kavanaugh's confirmation sparked large demonstrations at the Capitol and Supreme Court. Kavanaugh was confirmed and sworn in last month and immediately took his seat, hearing arguments and considering challenges. Fox's Jared Halpern. This is Fox News.
Makes his return, we found out what a kid would want to learn. I was joined by my special guest, Grant Kennedy, to talk with star Benedict Cumberbatch.
How did you come up with the Grinch voice?
Good question, Grant. I looked at the book first, and he's very sort of demonic and angry and animal-like in the book, and it was, to begin with, the voice was very growly and snarly and nasal and far back. And then I realized that actually the Grinch has a good time being the Grinch. He loves it in Mount Crumpet with Max, and who wouldn't with a dog like that? But also, he likes being mean to people. It's not bad for him to be mean. It's good for him to be mean. He loves it. So we made him a little lighter and then experimented that way.
Can you speak like how you were like in the movie?
What do you want me to say? I hate Christmas. I'm going to steal their Christmas.
Ooh.
That's you.
With my friend Grant, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
Only in the forest can you see this. And this. And this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
I didn't know it could do that!
Because one trip to the forest can spark a world of difference.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go, like hiking, canoeing, fishing, or camping. Or create your own adventure with family and friends, and you might just see this. Your moment's out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is Fox on Justice. The campaigning is over. The voting is concluded. Now, perhaps, comes Mueller time. During the final weeks of the midterm campaign, we heard very little from the Office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller and its investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential race. Most legal experts believe the Mueller team laid low during the midterm campaign. There have been indications that Mueller is just about wrapped up, even though, as far as we know, there's been no agreement reached to have President Trump answer any questions. Will there be new indictments? We don't know. A few days ago, we got a look at the previously confidential report issued by the Watergate special prosecutor in 1974. It was a report to Congress that laid out the facts in the case. What did President Richard Nixon know, and when did he know it, without making a recommendation on how to proceed? Some legal experts say the Mueller team might follow a similar plan. We may find out soon. With Fox on Justice, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
And now, another golf confessional brought to you by Golfsmith. Recently, a man told us he'd finally learned to deal with his anthropophobia, an overwhelming fear of other people. How? He went to Golfsmith and got the Nike VRS Covert 2.0 driver with its high-speed cavity-back design. Now he hits the ball so far, he doesn't have to be around anyone on the course. You don't need a psychological disorder to get the Nike VRS Covert 2.0 driver. You just need to go to Golfsmith. Anything for golf.
Show that's real. This is the Brian Kilmeade Show.
That's not an invasion.
honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let me
would be
ask,
much
if
better.
I may ask one other question. Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned.